In the world of A Song of Ice and Fire, Valyria is less a ruined city and more a whisper of a lost world, drowned in smoke, fire, and unspeakable sorcery. The doom shattered Valyria's empire and scattered its legacy to the winds. Yet some legends refuse to die. Among these is the mystery of the dragon with 3 heads, a phrase many have taken to symbolize 3 human champions or dragon riders. But what if we've been thinking too small? What if, in the crumbling, smoking wastes of Valyria, there still dwell not mere echoes, but 3 ancient dragons? Creatures that predate even the Targaryen conquest and survived the cataclysm that destroyed a civilization. The Warlocks of Qarth, who traffic in half-truths and riddles, once spoke to Daenerys of a dragon with 3 heads. Most readers assume they hint at human destiny. 3 figures bound to dragons, perhaps the prince that was promised, divided into parts. But warlocks are a breed who veil truths in symbol and song. Their visions are dreamlike. But dreams in Westeros often hide slivers of brutal reality. Perhaps their words should be taken literally. Perhaps, somewhere in the haunted shadows of Valyria, there remain 3 true dragons, old, vast, and terrible beyond imagining, waiting, slumbering, or hunting through the ruins of their broken world. Valyria was once the only land where dragons thrived naturally. Not bred like hounds or horses, but living wild amid towering mountains and rivers of molten rock. When the Valyrians first found them, dragons were creatures of the earth itself, tied to the smoking mountains that birthed them. Even the Targaryens, scions of that broken empire, could never fully replicate the great dragon flights of old. Balerion the Black Dread, greatest of Targaryen dragons, was said to have been born in Valyria itself, one of the last of the true-born dragons, larger and fiercer than any raised in Westeros. If Balerion could survive the doom to hatch on Dragonstone, could others have survived in secret, deeper in the heart of Valyria? The doom was not a singular explosion, but a series of cataclysms, earthquakes, firestorms, and floods that shattered the Valyrian peninsula. Its devastation was so thorough that even now, centuries later, ships that dare to approach the smoking sea vanish without a trace. But absolute destruction is rare in George R.R. Martin's world. In many corners of the series, we are reminded that ruin often leaves survivors. Broken, twisted, hidden survivors. We are met. What better place for ancient dragons to endure than among the very fires that once birthed them? Where lesser beings perished, the eldest and strongest might have found refuge among the ruins. If the 3 heads are indeed 3 dragons, their existence would rewrite much of what we believe about the world of Ice and Fire. Daenerys' 3 dragons, Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion, are the only known dragons alive during the series' events. But they are young, almost infants by draconic standards. The concept of ancient, fully grown dragons, untouched by human hand for centuries, suggests a living reservoir of primal power, one that could shatter kingdoms if ever unleashed. It also raises unsettling questions. Are these dragons merely beasts? Or have they become something more, something twisted by centuries of isolation and sorcery, shaped by Valyria's lingering curses into monsters far beyond human control? The concept of elder dragons surviving the doom is not as far-fetched as it seems when viewed through the lens of Valyrian history. Dragons, unlike mortal creatures, are deeply entwined with magic itself, the same kind of volatile magic that the Valyrians bent to their will with spells now lost to time. If the doom unleashed a cataclysm of sorcerous forces, it could have twisted not just the land, but the dragons as well. Ildefall's survivors would not emerge unscathed. They might have grown stranger, larger, more savage, or even half-mad from centuries of isolation. If such creatures still exist, they would not be the loyal mounts of dragon lords, but primeval forces of destruction, answering to no rider. The persistence of fire and smoke in the ruins of Valyria hints at a world where natural laws have been broken. Sailors tell tales of stone men, creatures deformed by grayscale, wandering the mists. Birds refuse to fly over the smoking sea. The waters themselves are said to boil. Such abnormalities suggest that Valyria's magic did not die with the doom, but instead metastasized. Unpredictable, dangerous, alive. In such a place, it is entirely plausible that ancient dragons, perhaps even the last of the first-blooded dragon race, could remain hidden, feeding on the unnatural forces that now saturate the land. The three heads of the dragon is a symbol repeated throughout A Song of Ice and Fire. Rhaegar Targaryen's obsession, Daenerys' visions, even the heraldry of House Targaryen itself. But it is rarely questioned whether this symbol might also point to something real and literal, rather than purely prophetic. It would not be the first time that Westerosi prophecy spoke in double meanings. Azor Ahai's rebirth, the bleeding star, smoke and salt, each carries a surface interpretation and a deeper hidden truth. The Warlocks of Qarth, cryptic and cruel, may have glimpsed through their glass candles or shade of the evening a literal vision of three ancient dragons, their heads crowning a future yet to come. Even the scant expeditions that have braved the ruins offer tantalizing hints. Geryon Lannister's ill-fated quest for Brightroar led him toward Valyria's smoking shores, and he was never seen again. Euron Greyjoy claims to have sailed farther than any man before, bringing back dark knowledge and artifacts of terrible power, such as the Dragonbinder horn, said to be able to control dragons. Was Euron's prize truly found in the Smoking Sea, and if so, was it taken from one of the three slumbering dragons, or from some shrine left behind by those who worship them? The implications are staggering. If the ancient dragons still live, their very existence could shift the tides of power across the known world. And what of the Dragonbinder itself? A horn large enough to require a giant to sound it, wrapped in black Valyrian steel, etched with glyphs that burn the lungs of those who dare to blow it. Euron's horn suggests not only that dragons beyond Daenerys' trio might exist, but that ancient Valyrians, or their descendants, crafted tools specifically to control such beasts. Why forge such a horn unless they anticipated encountering dragons too old, too wild, and too powerful to tame by traditional means? The very need for such an artifact implies the existence of dragons that could not be bound by bloodline alone. Dragons that refuse to kneel even before Valyrius might. If these ancient dragons do still live, their very nature would challenge what we believe about the relationship between dragons and men. In the Targaryen tradition, dragons were not simply beasts, they were extensions of family, reflections of blood and fire. Yet the dragons of Valyria's golden age were vaster in number and temperament, often described in ways more akin to gods than animals. The elder dragons, if they survive, would not recognize any Targaryen claim, nor any bond of affection. They would be creatures of pure instinct and ancient magic, as untamable as a storm, as merciless as wildfire, embodying the raw fury that once allowed Valyria to dominate half the world. The very notion that Daenerys' dragons are considered miraculous reveals how the world has shrunk since the Doom. In Valyria's prime, dragons were part of everyday life for the ruling families. Tools of conquest, symbols of prestige, living engines of war. The survival of three ancient dragons hidden away would suggest that the true legacy of Valyria is not gone, but sleeping, waiting for a time when the world is once again ready to be shaped in fire and blood. It is a chilling thought that perhaps these dragons are not dormant due to slumber, but by design, sealed away by surviving sorcerers or natural instinct, awaiting a harbinger to awaken them. Dreams and prophecies ripple throughout the Targaryen bloodline, often touching on dragons. Daenerys' visions in the House of the Undying showed her a glimpse of a future where fire consumes all. A dragon rising above the ruins, the shadow of wings spreading across a darkened world. Many assume Drogon is that shadow. But what if the vision was a warning of something far older, far more terrible? Dreams in Westeros are often double-edged, blurring future and past, desire and doom. The three ancient dragons could represent not a blessing but an apocalypse yet to come. Moreover, the symbology of three is deeply ingrained in the magic of this world. Not just three heads, but triads of power. The three-eyed raven watches with three eyes, Azora hides forging required 3 attempts. The others come in 3s in many tales. Magic in Westeros, especially magic tied to fire and blood, often manifests in 3s. It would be consistent for the last greatest dragons of Valyria to embody this ancient rule, acting as a living triad of destruction, a final echo of the Empire's lost glory and its original sin. The 3 heads of the dragon would not be a hopeful prophecy, but a dire reckoning. If these dragons exist, they could be the key to understanding Valyria's downfall itself. Many speculate that the doom was not merely a natural disaster, but a magical catastrophe brought about by reckless sorcery, perhaps an attempt to bind, control, or even annihilate dragons that had grown beyond their master's reach. In trying to wield ultimate power, the Dragon Lords may have unleashed forces they could not control, resulting in the annihilation. The 3 surviving dragons, then, would be the unintended survivors of a failed spell, living relics of a civilization's greatest mistake. If we accept that 3 ancient dragons still haunt the broken spires of Valyria, then the next question must be asked. What role might they yet play in the wars to come? A Song of Ice and Fire is, at its heart, a story where ancient powers resurface at moments of great peril. Dragons, others, Greenseers and Shadowbinders, all once thought to be myths, re-emerge as the world teeters on the brink of ruin. The awakening of 3 primordial dragons would not be an isolated marvel. It would signal a turning of the Great Wheel, a return of ancient, uncontrollable magic when mankind is least prepared to face it. It's tempting to imagine Daenerys or another Dragonlord figure discovering these creatures and seeking to claim them, yet these dragons would be no willing mounts. Unlike Drogon, Rhaegal and Viserion, who were hatched in blood and bonded early, the elder dragons would see humans not as riders, but as prey. Euron Greyjoy's ambition may hint at this darker possibility. In A Feast for Crows and later in A Dance with Dragons, Euron's vision of conquest is built on the domination of forces he barely understands. His possession of Dragonbinder and his cryptic references to greater prizes suggest he might not be satisfied with stealing Daenerys' dragons. He may covet something far older and more potent. This possibility would also reframe the prophetic tension around the idea of the dragon has 3 heads. Perhaps there is no need for 3 Targaryens or 3 dragon riders. Perhaps the 3 heads refer instead to an awakening, a convergence of monstrous forces that will reshape the world in fire. A literal 3-headed dragon does not necessarily represent salvation. It could symbolize annihilation, a final balancing of the old magic before the dawn of a new age. Just as the long night threatens Westeros from the north, so too might the ancient fires of Valyria burn from the south, devouring kingdoms already weakened by war. The juxtaposition between ice and fire is not merely thematic, it is existential. The others embody ice, death, stasis. Dragons embody fire, life, and destruction. Yet unchecked fire is as dangerous as endless ice. If these ancient dragons rise again, they could very well mirror the threat from the north, creating a war not just of politics and kingship, but of elemental survival. Humanity may find itself caught between 2 apocalypses, with fragile alliances shattered by the realization that salvation was never promised, only survival against impossible odds. The lore also hints at the hubris of men who believe they can command dragons. Maegor the Cruel's bloody reign proved that even Targaryen dragon riders could be undone by their beasts. The Dance of the Dragons shattered House Targaryen's dominance when dragon fought dragon, brother against sister, rider against rider, until only broken carcasses remained. If 3 ancient dragons, untouched by human hand, were to re-enter the world, it would not be a triumphant return of Valyria's glory, but a grim echo of its fall, a final reminder that those who play with fire are always burned in the end. In the end, the possibility of 3 ancient dragons still lurking in Valyria is not merely a tantalizing myth. It is a mirror held up to the ambitions, dreams, and delusions of those who seek to rule the world of Westeros and beyond. Fire made Valyria mighty, but it also unmade them. Should the dragons of old rise again, it would not be a victory for any one house or hero. It would be a reckoning, a reminder that the forces of creation and destruction are deeply intertwined, and that no mortal hand can command them forever. If Daenerys, Euron, or another power-hungry figure were to awaken these slumbering giants, the consequences could be catastrophic. Dragons born of Valyria's molten heart would not distinguish between conqueror and conquered. Their fury would be as impersonal as an earthquake, as inevitable as a flood. And unlike the young dragons Daenerys raises with tenderness, these ancient monsters would bear the scars of a civilization that tried to harness them and failed. They would not be tamed again. They would be vengeance incarnate, the living ruin of a dead empire. George R.R. Martin's world constantly reminds us that magic, once unleashed, demands a price. The children of the forest created the others to save themselves from men, only to doom themselves in the process. The Valyrians built an empire on dragonfire, only to have it collapse into ashes. If 3 ancient dragons remain, they would stand as the ultimate proof that the past is never truly dead, and that the greatest dangers are those we arrogantly believe we have mastered. In a world already spiraling toward chaos, the North ravaged by others, the South engulfed in war, the return of such primal forces could shatter all hope of restoring order. Dragons once symbolized dominion and power. Now, they may symbolize the final, fiery judgment of a world too blind to learn from its own mistakes. The Warlock's cryptic prophecy about a dragon with 3 heads, then, would not be a promise of salvation, but a warning of devastation yet to come. And so, as the world of ice and fire trembles on the edge of a knife, we must ask ourselves, in the smoking ruins of Valyria, amid the endless ash and stone, do 3 ancient dragons still dream of fire? And if they do, when they wake, will anyone be left to see the sky burn?